I want you to picture something. A perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon. Sun coming through the kitchen windows. Coffee still warm on the counter. Everything in its place, dishes done, laundry folded. The particular tidiness of a home that has been carefully maintained by someone who takes pride in the details, except the person who maintained all of it is gone. No text, no explanation. Just gone. My name is Diane, and on a Tuesday afternoon in September, I packed 2 suitcases, loaded them into a car I had rented 3 days earlier under my name alone, and left the house I had lived in for 9 years. I did not leave a note. I did not send a text. I turned my phone to silent, placed it face down on the passenger seat, and drove. By the time my husband came home at 4:30 p.m., 2 hours earlier than usual, which I had not known, and which turned out to be important, I was already 200 miles away. Checked into a hotel room I had booked a week earlier. Sitting on the edge of the bed with a cup of tea I couldn't taste. Watching the notification counter on my phone climb. 1 missed call, 5:12:23. By 7 p.m. it was 47. I did not answer a single one. Not because I was cruel, not because I wanted to cause pain for the sake of it, but because I had spent 9 years answering every call, every question, every demand, every version of where are you and when will you be home and why didn't you tell me? And I had finally, quietly, completely run out of answers to give. But let me take you back, because you need to understand what those 9 years looked like from the inside. If something in you already recognizes this story, subscribe to this channel right now, because what I did on that Tuesday and what happened in the weeks that followed is something I have never told anyone the complete version of until today. I married David when I was 26 years old. He was not a bad man. I want to say that clearly, because this story is not about a villain. It is about something more complicated and in some ways more difficult to name. David was not cruel. He was not unfaithful. He did not raise his voice or his hand, or do any of the things that make a situation legible from the outside. What David did was quieter than that, and quieter things, I have learned, can do just as much damage. David needed to know where I was at all times. Not in a romantic way, in a monitoring way. A text when I arrived somewhere, a call when I was leaving, an explanation for any deviation from the expected schedule that was detailed enough to satisfy him before he stopped asking. In the beginning, I had mistaken it for love, for the particular attentiveness of someone who cared deeply about my safety and well-being. By year 3, I had started to understand it differently. By year 5, I had stopped making plans that required explanations. I wasn't ready to give. By year 7, I had friends I no longer saw regularly because the process of accounting for an evening out had become more exhausting than the evening itself. By year 9, I had become very small. So gradually I couldn't point to the exact moment it happened, just the slow, patient accumulation of adjustments that had added up, over time, to a life that fit inside a very narrow shape. The breaking point was not dramatic. It never is with these things. It was a Thursday evening in August. I had signed up for a pottery class, something I had wanted to do for years, something small and private and entirely my own. I had mentioned it to David casually, the way you mention things when you have learned to present them, as minor so they don't become major. He had questions. Many questions. Who taught the class? Who else attended? What time it finished? Whether I would be home for dinner? I answered all of them. The following week he called me during the class, then texted when I didn't answer immediately. By the time I came home, 40 minutes after the class ended, having stopped for groceries he had asked me to pick up, he was sitting at the kitchen table with the particular expression of someone who has been constructing a narrative in your absence. You said you'd be home by 8, he said. It's 8:43, I said. I stopped for groceries. You didn't text. I stood in the kitchen doorway, holding 2 bags of groceries. He had asked me to buy and felt, with complete clarity, something I had been circling for a long time. I was 43 minutes late. I had groceries, I had done nothing wrong, and I was standing in my own home feeling like I needed to apologize for existing slightly outside the parameters that had been set for me. I put the groceries down. I went to bed, And for the first time in 9 years, I made a plan that I did not tell David about. If you are still with me, please share this video right now. Someone you know is living inside a version of this story. Subscribe to this channel. Because what I did next took 3 weeks to prepare, and it changed everything. 3 weeks. That was how long it took me to prepare. I opened a bank account in my name only. I contacted a lawyer. A consultation. Just information. Just so I knew what I was entitled to, and what the process looked like. I called my sister, who lived 4 hours away, and told her everything. The real everything. Not the managed version I had been presenting for years. She cried. She told me to come. I booked the hotel for a week. I rented the car. I packed carefully. Not dramatically. Not everything. Just what I needed. I left the house clean. I left his dinner in the fridge with instructions. I left nothing that looked like anger because I wasn't angry. I was finished. When I drove away on that Tuesday afternoon, I felt, for the first time in a very long time, like I could breathe at a normal depth. The 47 calls came in waves, first confused, then concerned, then increasingly frantic. David was not underneath everything. A man without feeling, and I think the silence frightened him in a way that nothing I had ever said directly had managed to. I answered on day 3. 1 call, 15 minutes. I told him everything I had never said directly. Not with anger, with the particular calm of someone who has already made their decision and is simply providing information. He listened. For the first time in 9 years, he listened without interrupting, without redirecting, without reframing what I was saying into something more comfortable for him. When I finished, there was a long silence. I didn't know, he said. I didn't know it felt like that. I know, I said. That's part of the problem. We tried for a period to rebuild. Therapy. Genuine, difficult. Honest therapy where things were named that had never been named before. David worked hard. I will say that clearly. He worked hard. He was not someone who received the truth about himself and dismissed it. But some spaces, once you have stepped out of them, cannot be stepped back into. Not because the other person hasn't changed, but because you have, and the version of you that fits inside that narrow shape no longer exists. We separated 8 months after that Tuesday. Quietly. Without drama. With a sadness that was real and a relief. That was equally real, and the particular complexity of 2 people who are not enemies trying to untangle. 9 years with as much care as possible. I live alone now. In a small city I chose for no reason, except that I had always been curious about it. I take pottery classes on Thursday evenings. I come home when I want to. I answer my phone when I choose to. It is, I have discovered, the most ordinary freedom in the world, and the most extraordinary thing I have ever had. Here is what 47 missed calls and a Tuesday afternoon taught me. Leaving is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is 2 suitcases and a rented car and a hotel room and a phone. You have turned to silent. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply go, quietly, completely, on your own terms, and trust that the explanation can come later, when you are ready, from a place of strength rather than desperation. My husband came home and found me gone. He called 47 times, and when I finally answered, I was already someone he had never quite met before. Someone who knew with complete certainty exactly how much space she was allowed to take up. If this story reached you, if it opened something, please share it right now with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for stories like this every single week, and leave a comment below. Have you ever made a quiet decision that changed everything? I want to hear it. I am always listening.